Will Hungary and Poland soon be cut off from EU funds? The European Court of Justice, the ECJ, could pave the way for the application of a new regulation to punish violations of the rule of law in the EU. Should the judges declare the so-called rule of law mechanism to be legal, corresponding proceedings will soon be instituted against countries such as Hungary and Poland. Ultimately, these also provide for the possibility of states getting their funds cut from the EU budget. Specifically, the ECJ proceedings are about the regulation on the conditionality of the rule of law, as it's called, which has been in force since the beginning of 2021. Its purpose is to ensure that violations of the rule of law, such as the separation of powers, no longer go unpunished if they threaten to misuse EU funds. Poland and Hungary saw themselves as being particularly in the focus of the new instrument and therefore complained to the ECJ. The EU Commission under Ursula von der Leyen wanted to wait until the verdict before using the mechanism. It also provides for an agreement by the heads of state and government in summer 2020, with which the governments in Budapest and Warsaw were persuaded to give up their blockade on important EU budget decisions. Well, at the same time, the EU Commission repeatedly emphasized that preparations for procedures based on the mechanism were underway and that no case would be lost. The European Parliament, on the other hand, has been putting pressure on for a long time and has even sued the EU Commission before the ECJ for its hesitancy. But the proceedings are still ongoing, and the main proceedings have ended after I filmed this video, but I keep you posted what will be the decision. Prime Minister Boris Johnson wants to keep the British embassy in Kiev open for as long as possible, despite the tense situation in Ukraine. "I think keeping our embassy open as long as possible is an important symbol," Johnson said in London on Tuesday, after the US moved its embassy in Ukraine to the city of Lviv, some 50 kilometers from Poland's border. Great Britain has also relocated some employees to Lviv, but others are still stationed in Kiev. However, British citizens who do not necessarily have to remain in Ukraine have been advised to leave the country. Johnson said there were currently mixed signals coming from Moscow. On the one hand, there are signs of a diplomatic opening, as they put it. On the other hand, the intelligence information is still not encouraging. The construction of field hospitals on the border between Belarus and Ukraine still points to an imminent invasion. The US side had given Wednesday, the day I'm filming this, as the day of a possible invasion of Ukraine by Russian troops. Since I started filming, this didn't happen. It's still possible, it said on Tuesday from Western security circles. However, an attack can happen at any time. It's important not to focus too much on one date. Italians will not vote in a referendum this spring on legalizing euthanasia. The Constitutional Court in Rome decided on Tuesday evening to reject the request for a referendum. Activist groups had recently collected enough signatures for the court to deal with the application. In a deliberation that lasted around 3 hours, the judges came to the conclusion that allowing euthanasia was not compatible with the constitutional protection of human life. The supporters were disappointed and announced that they would now seek a change in the law by Parliament. In Italy, active and passive euthanasia is forbidden and can be punished with imprisonment. However, the Constitutional Court decided in 2019 that there can be exceptions if certain aspects are present. It must be clear that a patient can no longer be cured, that he is dependent on life-sustaining measures, that he is experiencing unbearable physical and mental pain, but is still fully and is able to make free decisions and understand the consequences. In addition to the issue of euthanasia, the Constitutional Court has other requests for referendums, including one on the legalization of cannabis and several on judicial reforms. Their approval is to be negotiated and decided today, but I haven't had the results when I started filming. But I'll keep you posted, as you know. The Netherlands lift most of the corona measures. From Friday, football stadiums, theaters, cinemas and restaurants will be allowed to receive almost unlimited visitors again, and they'll be open again until 1 a.m. instead of 10 p.m. as before. The country will be reopened, Health Minister Ernst Kuipers said in The Hague on Tuesday evening. In view of the declining number of infections, there is reason for optimism, explained Kuipers. But we have to be realistic. Corona is not gone. He continued to urge citizens to exercise caution. The return to normality happens in 2 steps. After the first easing this Friday, the expected last step will follow on February 25th. Then the mask requirement will be largely abolished and also the Corona Pass, it said. With the pass, visitors to restaurants, culture and sports still have to prove that they have been tested, vaccinated or recovered. For major indoor events such as festivals, testing will be mandatory in the future. The mask requirement should only apply in local public transport and on airplanes. In the past few weeks, pressure from citizens and businesses on the government to lift the measures had increased. Even experts now consider this to be justifiable. According to the Institute for Health and Environment (RIVM), the number of patients in hospitals is declining slightly. The number of new infections has also fallen by 22% in the past 7 days. It seems that the peak of this wave of infections is behind us, said the RIVM. At the start of the new trial against him, the imprisoned Kremlin opponent Alexei Navalny accused the Russian judiciary of arbitrary staging of criminal proceedings. My trials are quite strange in terms of the procedure and the verdicts, but they've crossed every line here, said Russian President Vladimir Putin's opponent on Tuesday in the makeshift courtroom in the prison camp. There, he also met his wife Yulia Navalnaya again, and the couple hugged and was able to use the breaks for themselves. This time, Navalny has to answer for alleged misappropriation of funds for his anti-corruption foundation, which has since been banned, and for insulting a judge. According to his team, Navalny faces 15 years in prison. The court refused to move the trial to the Russian capital Moscow, which is around 100 kilometers away. The 45-year-old said the client of the procedure was not afraid of the procedure, but he thinks that everyone would then be able to see that the accusation was fabricated. However, several journalists found themselves in the penal camp in Pokrov in the Vladimir region, as reported by the Mediazona portal. And you just witnessed what can happen, that a light failed here, and it's probably broken, so I'll just continue. In the midst of the conflict with Ukraine, Russia says it has begun withdrawing troops from the south and west of the country after maneuvers. The first soldiers should return to the permanent bases as early as Tuesday, and there were still some discussions about this, although Defense Ministry spokesman Igor Konashenkov said that in Moscow. In addition, the loading of military technology had begun. Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu had previously announced that some exercises were nearing completion. It was initially really unclear how many soldiers were involved. Other maneuvers continued, including in neighboring Belarus. Konashenkov stressed that Russia was continuing a set of large-scale operations related to the operational training of troops and armed forces. Nevertheless, the procedure was seen as a possible step towards relaxation. Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova wrote on the social network Telegram, "On February 15, 2022, that will go down in history as the day when Western war propaganda died down. The West made a fool of itself." The West had reacted with extreme concern to the Russian maneuvers. The US fears that the troop movements and the development of the movement of tens of thousands of soldiers along the Ukrainian border are a preparation for war. Russia always rejects this. And meanwhile, in the Black Sea, more than 30 Russian warships of different classes held another maneuver using artillery. According to the Ministry of Defense, the Black Sea Fleet exercise involved heavy artillery fire in order to practice destroying an enemy submarine. And I'll see you in my next video. Bis gleich.